Hi and welcome to the Retribution Theatre. This is where people post in logs and ask me to have a look at them and see if I could come up with any ideas how they can boost their DPS. This particular one is a log from a single person who was raiding with another Retribution Paladin. The particular log they want us to look at was Krosus. They did significantly less damage on that fight and they wanted me to have a look at it. I'm just going to cut a long story short on this one. I'm going to put the video of my process through it. Often what will happen when you look at these sort of things is you'll see something that they're doing wrong that they can improve on, and then that should sort the whole problem out. This one isn't going to happen like that. In actual fact, it was nothing that they were really doing wrong as such. It actually took me a little while to work out what was going on. But at the same time, the video may still be instructive into the process that I go through when I'm trying to analyse logs and work out what's happening. The Retribution Paladin in question here is, if I put it on damage done, the lower of the two. Wanting to know, first of all, why the other one is able to do more damage. So I'm just going to go through a general process of how I'd sort of look at this. Now, first things first, we'll just have a look at the old gear there. Where am I going? Click on that. Oh, there we go. Not click on, just hover over. So got the good legendaries. Entwined Elemental Foci, Trinket. What's the other trinket? Eternally Recurring something or other. God, I don't even know what that is. I don't think that's probably not a great one. If I don't recall what that trinket is, I might have to look that up. The other one's also got the two good legendaries. Got Convergence of Fates. Oh, what am I doing? I'm looking at the wrong one. Claw of the Crystalline Scorpid. I'm probably looking at the wrong one there. Oh yeah, you've got Convergence of Fates as well. So what we're going to have a look, I'm just going to open up both of these. So we'll open up the other guy who did well, and you who's not so happy. Although the DPS is more than enough to kill the boss. But yeah, sure, if someone in the same role who's doing the same thing, same class and spec, you should probably think, and probably, is it similar? And not that item level tells you the whole story. But it is within tolerance. Now I'm going to have a look at the buffs here, because you've both got Convergence of Fates. So if I have a look at you first of all. So with your Convergence of Fates, you used Crusade 3 times. You could use Crusade 3 times without Convergence of Fate, so you shouldn't actually be using that trinket. That's the first thing I would say. You haven't got yourself an extra use out of it. And in fact, you didn't even try, because if we look here, if I actually click on that, I can see that when Crusade would have been naturally available, and with Convergence it would have been available a little bit earlier, you held on to it anyway. Perfectly sensible in my view anyway, because that's round about the time you get a Burning Pitch. I tend to use my second Crusade after that Burning Pitch, well, after I finish soaking, and then I'm going on to ads. That seems to be what you've done. But what it means is you're not getting any benefit from Convergence of Fate other than the strength on it. Well, you could get strength on a stat stick as well as have a secondary stat there. So that trinket completely wasted. I'm just going to get rid of that. If we have a look at the other guy, same thing actually. So you've both used a trinket and got no benefit from it. I don't use it on Krosus for that reason. You can actually use it on Krosus and get some benefit from it. But it is tricky, and I mean, I would argue it's not all that beneficial anyway, because you can't help yourself unless you ignore the mechanic, the actual Burning Pitch, and let everyone else do it, which would be a shitty thing to do. You're not going to get full use out of it anyway. So you probably just shouldn't use that trinket, use a different trinket instead. Now, the other thing I could have a look at, because you used the Elemental Foci, we could try and have a look for where it was proccing. I don't have that one, so I don't necessarily know which it. I guess these are them. Frost and Fire. Is there an Arcane one anywhere? Because I think these are the ones off the Elemental Foci, aren't they? I don't actually know what is a good proc rate, but what I do know is where you're getting these. I know that particular trinket, sometimes people think it's really good, and the reason they think it's really good is because they look at, you look at ranks, you look at the top ranks, you go, oh, there's a load of people who've got that trinket. The reason is it's an RNG trinket. When it fires off and does really good RNG, you can potentially do really good damage. looking at the top passing players and what they're using isn't always the best, because sometimes to get a top rank you need a good slice of luck, and there are some items and some, you know, things that when you get lucky, you get really lucky and they do a lot for you, but most of the time you don't get lucky, and sometimes they actually are subpar. If they're just going to, you know, their average performance is subpar, so you shouldn't really use it for any sort of consistent performance. But I can see that neither of these really linked up with your crusade. That one tantalizingly fired off after a crusade ended, by the look of it, or at least very towards the end of it. So they weren't necessarily, you know, whereas you could imagine some with a rank 1, it'd probably happen that it would coincide or something like that, or with lots of ads. So the other thing we can look at is a replay. So this is what I'm going to have a look at now. We'll keep an eye on you both and see what you're both doing. Actually, just before I stop that, I'm going to just go into the Analyze. There's one other thing I want to have a look at, actually, before we do that. Let's look at the initial burst phase. So on the initial burst, which you're not interrupted at all, you're not affected at all, the other Retribution Paladin was doing more damage. Might have been a bit of luck, might have been a bit of bad luck from you. And again, if I just click on that and just look at your buffs at that point, you didn't have that. See, that elemental foci trinket didn't proc at all for you as far as I can tell. So it wasn't doing you any real good there. I would tend to go for more reliable trinkets. Obviously, I don't know what trinkets you have. But if you've got something like Horn of Valor or a high level, obviously, Horn of Valor or something like that, then that goes really well with Crusade for that DPS burst phase. Similarly, if you've got, I mean, anything, a stat stick. For consistent DPS, a stat stick would be better. But let's go back to that replay. Let's have an actual look in terms of what's going on. So we could probably ignore the first half minute because we can sort of see what's happening there. I'll come back onto the details of that. So moving back for Burning Pitch at the moment. So let's have a look. Let's see how many spawn altogether. Let's see how good your group is at soaking. Not bad. Is that it? You only got 3 altogether? So there's no real reason, because you can imagine if a load spawn over here and this guy ignores them, just focus on that and then get straight onto the boss, you'd think, okay. But in actual fact, you've done pretty well. Okay, the range didn't do very well. They've got one right at the back. And there's only so many people even attacking it. The range seems to be disappearing off down here. Some look, the old Shadow Priest has spotted it and gone, oh, better get back and kill it. Whereas everyone else has ignored it. But actually, no, that's pretty decent. So if I go back to where we had that damage, so what time were we on there? A bit over a minute into it, because that's when Burning Pitch comes in. So at this point, we're getting back onto the boss. Have you caught up at all? At this point, actually, you're going even further back. Tell you what, I need to have a look at this. I need to have a look at this in a bit more detail. So let's have a look at resources. Let's look at holy power usage. Holy power. You actually generated more holy power during that crusade period. I mean, at the moment, it's going to be tricky to work out what the difference is between you. So let's, oh, for goodness sake, behave. Right, so the first 40 seconds. So this is the other guy who cast Templar's Verdict 16 times. You cast it 16 times as well. Your average hit was 634k. His average hit was much more. your crit rate was much lower. This could be as silly as a gearing issue. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to pause this at the moment, and I'm going to have a look at you both on WoW Progress. So I'm just looking, actually, I've gone from WoW Progress, I've gone to the Armory. Obviously this gear is not necessarily the same gear you're using on the fight. For you it seems to be, for this guy it doesn't, because... actually it is. I was looking on WoW Progress. You had the actual shoulders equipped. But on here you don't. The crit rate, the problem with looking at the armour is it's not absolutely up to date. We can't get this from WoW Progress without adding up ourselves. Your crit rates look very similar. So there is no real reason why that crit rate should have been greater. There's no obvious reason why your friend's Templar's Verdict, when you cast the same number in that same period of time, should have done about 25% more damage. Looking on WoW Progress, we can see, so this is your friend here who's got a relic. I mean, these relics are not that great. A relic that increases the damage dealt by Judgment, increased by Divine Storm, useless, at least for this, and just a single one that increases the Wrath one. 918 item level. Now yours is slightly lower item level, but not horrendously lower, and you've got two things that increase your Wrath of the Ashbringer. So you've got an extra 2.5 seconds of Wrath of the Ashbringer, and one that increases your Templar's Verdict. So he's got slightly greater number of traits. Now, obviously, this is now... You sent the logs in a couple of weeks ago. I don't know what the point was there. It could just be that the logs then were... The traits then... The difference in the traits then meant that his was doing straight up more damage. But again, 25% more damage. I think we have to put that down to just luck. He got more crits and just got a bit lucky. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that's what it's like all the way through. So I'm just going to reset that. I'm going to go through different parts of the fight here. So for the first 40 seconds, you may have been a little bit unlucky. So let's have a look at the next 40 seconds. Well, not the next 40 seconds. Let's go up to the 2-minute mark, round about when Burning Pitch would have happened again. And do the same here. $18 casts of Templar's Verdict by you. What am I doing? Go wrong one. 17 casts there. So again, you got one extra Templar's Verdict cast. Yours did 20 million. This guy's did 17 million. So, no, yours did 17 million. Sorry. So again, consistently, the Templar's Verdict's damage is lower. So even when you are getting... I mean, you've got an extra cast off then. It's done 3 million less damage in total. You're doing less Templar's Verdict damage. So at this point, I'm thinking to myself, something feels very, very odd here. I'm looking at either it's because of the difference in your traits at that time. You weren't as ahead with the 7.2 traits, or something else is a bit funny. Because obviously, as I'm looking at your gear, I'm looking at it now as it is now, not as it was, unfortunately, a couple of weeks ago. So let's try and just look up your overall logs profile. So what I can see here, we look at this, okay. So the way, when you're looking at these percentiles, what people focusing on are these ones because they look the shiniest, because they're your best ones. It's like the one time we did really well. The median, arguably, a little bit, you know, in terms of consistency. So if we look here, your best DPS on Krosus has been nearly an 870k DPS. Your friend is an 844 one. But there, if you look at the percentiles, your median one is 35, theirs is 87. So maybe they're a bit more consistent. It is only across 3 fights. So The fact that you have come out with a better one here, significantly better, and in terms of your all-star points, they don't really mean a lot, but in terms of like, as you're focusing on absolute damage numbers, then they're very, very similar. You're almost identical, in fact. Consistent, you know, you could argue consistently their numbers are a little better than yours, you know, but it looks like it was probably down to a bit of bad luck potentially in terms of the crits, but also there's something else, there's something weird going on there that may have just been down to the fact that at the time you were significantly behind in your artifact traits with the new 7.2 traits. It looks like you're both up to the point where you've got most of the useful traits now until you get concordance at least. I would probably put it down to that. I mean, one thing we could tell from the replay is it does look like you both do move out for burning pitch. So you're both doing the mechanics. That's another burning pitch going to be coming up here. Where are you both? That's where you are. Where's the other guy? Oh, you were both in the same place. You're both moving out at this. What's going on here? All right, no, that's just really weird that there is standing next to the tank, but that might be just in terms of where you're sort of told to stand. I just want. Let's just have a little look here. This has got nothing to do with the damage. Again, it looks like your guild does pretty well with soaking. Two nice and close together. You're both onto those. You're going to be presumably cleaving with those. Let's have a little look at you. Yeah. Divine Storm using. So that's, you know, onto the boss. So you're both sort of doing the same sort of thing. It's not like one person staying on the boss and just creeping out. You're both moving out at the same time, the same distance to soak. You're both moving in the same way back onto the boss. The only last thing to check, I guess, would be I think this is just you both used unsuitable, or at least one trinket that was unsuitable, and your elemental foci is not that great. It's great if you're going to have loads of goes and you actually want to get rank ones, because you just wait for the lucky pull when its procs work really well for you. But that doesn't happen very often. Have I gone past the burning pitch here? Did you not get the last burning pitch? Maybe you killed it before that happened. Yeah, it looks like you did. So there was no opportunities to sneak a load of damage there. You're both doing the same thing. You're both generating roughly the same amount of holy power. You're both using roughly the same number of spenders. If we look at the whole fight, just so that I can be completely satisfied about that, because I only looked at a couple of portions of the fight, but those couple of the portions of the fight are just repeated for the rest of the fight, so it shouldn't really make a huge amount of difference. So in the whole fight, you cast Templar's Verdict 81 times. Look at Divine Hammer in a moment. Your friend 76, that was fewer. But again, even with 5 fewer, their Templar's Verdicts did more damage than yours. Something was happening. I'm going to put that down to, you know, traits or maybe relics at the time. Something like that was causing their Templar's Verdict. Or maybe they did have a lot more crit than you, because their overall crit over the fight, just about 23%. No, yours was 23%, sorry. Getting them mixed up again. There's 25%. It was actually, by the end of the fight, wasn't that much different. But they've done significantly more Templar's Verdict damage. Resources for the whole fight. Holy power. Because maybe there was a bad portion of the fight. The 5 wastage is fine. You've generated only 4 fewer. So the other, what I'm going to look at here is total spenders in the fight. So Templar's Verdict, you cast 81 Templar's Verdicts and 4 Divine Storms. So that's 85 spenders in total. Your friend 76 Templar's Verdicts, 8 So that's 84 in total. Total amount of damage from spenders. Templar's Verdict, you did 94 million. And then Divine Storm, another 6 million. It's like 101 million altogether. From you, from your friend. 97 there. 17. That's like 115 million. So they've done an extra sort of 15 million-ish just from their spenders. And let's have a look. What was 254? I mean, only going to count for so much of it. But that if you'd have done the same there, that'd have been on like 225. You'd still be about 30 million behind them. So if we look at other things that were doing more or less damage, Divine Hammer, you'd have both had that been using that. 248 casts, 224. So you cast it more often. They did 44 million damage with it. You did 38 million damage with it. So it's just all these abilities, even though like you're using them either roughly the same or more often by the looks of it, but they're generating millions more damage from them. That's got to be a gear issue, because that's nothing they're actively doing. The thing you actively do is use these abilities. Now with Divine Hammer, okay, it could be positioning. It could be they're hitting more targets. 247 things hit by a Divine Hammer with yours. 251, I mean, that's only 4 extra ones. Because that could be a thing, positioning. If they're positioning themselves so it's hitting more targets when they get the opportunity, it will obviously do more damage. But in actual fact, their average, and this is just for a single hit, 176 damage. Yours is 155, significantly lower. So I'm convinced now that the issue was a couple of weeks ago that your artifact weapon was significantly behind theirs, even a few levels. Remember, because we've had new traits that increase the damage done by our Divine Hammer or Blade of Justice, increase the damage done by our Templar's Verdict, our Divine Storm, all the rest of it. That's what I'm looking at here. The actual usage of the abilities is the same. I can see from the replay you're both moving the same with Burning Pitch. You're both doing it at the same time, the same distance away. No one's gaining an advantage from that. You're both playing the same. You both like played the same effectively. I would say both of you used Convergence of Fate foolishly, because neither of you used it to get yourself an extra or earlier crusade out of it. I would also, unless I don't know what trinkets you've got, but I would also say the elemental foci. So it's all right, it's good, but it's a very RNG based trinket, which is one reason why I'm not bothering to try and get it, because it's very RNG based. And the RNG gods were not smiling on you on this particular try. But like we saw before, when we look at now your percentiles now, you actually have a better percentile on this boss than your friend there. So I would say the problem's probably solved itself out. But anyway, that's my sort of process there. Hopefully some people might have learnt something from the process of which I went through that. It was a very messy one today. But that's how it goes sometimes. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, it's one of those, it's a bit like a sitcom, isn't it? You watch the sitcom and it's like, how is this going to end? There's only 2 minutes before it ends, and then it turns out it was all a dream. Same sort of thing here. Sorry, that slight sense of disappointment. There isn't anything you're doing significantly wrong in terms of difference to your friend there. It was a gear issue. But anyway, I hope you found that interesting. And with other people have asked me, you know, if they send the logs in, will I sort of do something like this? I will. This one was sent in a couple of weeks ago. I can't always promise to do it immediately. It all depends on when it comes in and what I'm doing that particular weekend or something. But there's every chance that I can do it quickly, and I will always aim to do it within a few weeks. If I see the message, and the best way to do that is to email me. I'll put that in the description below. But you can send a direct message. The only problem is when it's got a link in it, which of course it has to do, sort of. It can sometimes end up in the spam box, but I do check the spam box now and then as well. But anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.